What is up, everyone? We are back for another episode of JD Talks NASCAR, and I'm sure I sound a little different under the weather right now, but that's kind of the reason why I was trying to hold off until I could kick whatever I've got going on. But it's now Tuesday. I'm sure you all are waiting on the episode. I know I was waiting to record one, so here we are. I'm going to go ahead and get this in. If it's unlistenable because of the way I sound, I'm so sorry. Hopefully, I'll be back and 100% next week after the Richmond race. But, um, you know, COTA was decent. I would say. I think, people look back at the first COTA race and they see the Chastain, Bowman, and Allmendinger battle and think, like, man, that's got to be the best race at COTA. They forget up until that point it was not the best. But I thought overall racing wise it was fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't. I wasn't bored. I know a lot of the fans listening aren't road course fans, and I understand that. I get where you're coming from. But I thought it was perfectly acceptable, as Jordan Bianchi says. Um, that member of the teardown and Rice for the Athletic. That's what he calls races that um, are fine, and I thought this was one that was indeed fine. Nothing jumps off the page at me like, oh my gosh, that was a great race. Nothing says I was bored to death because I was engaged the whole race. Um, but it was a typical road course race with this car. I feel like, um, they thought it would race better on road courses. Eh, Not been the best, but I really couldn't find much to complain about. To be honest with you, um, I think it's basically split right down the middle. I think half of the fan base liked it, half of the fan base didn't. And coming off an amazing race like Bristol was, it's hard to live up to that back to back weeks. So, and then we get in this stretch of two straight short tracks in Richmond and Martinsville. What do we expect there? We'll have to find out. But I think Richmond is Richmond. It's just never. It's similar to Phoenix. You're going to have races there. I can't remember the last time we had like a drop your jaw like OMG race at Richmond. I went last year, the first one that Kyle Larson won, and it was a decent race, but it got helped by like a couple laps left, and they restarted. Seabell gets into Ross, and it causes a wreck, that type of thing. But Richmond's Richmond. It's going to be tire saving. I don't know if they're on the same tire as they were in Bristol, but that's one thing that could make it interesting. I don't think they are though. I don't think it's the same tire. I think I heard Denny say that on his podcast, but um, it's going to be what it's going to be. So we'll see. But let's get into the COTA recap. And it started off, and I went back and looked, and I think every single race there has been a dust up or a caution within the first 10 laps. And this was lap one. It just looked like Corey LaJoy overdrove turn one and got into the 19 and the 23, caused significant damage for all three cars. Corey dropped from start. I want to give him credit first for starting top five. He started fifth, did a great job, but lost all his track position, and because of the incident, um, just didn't really understand going. It was obviously a mistake. But hated that for the 23 and the 19, and all three cars were able to continue. It wasn't catastrophic, but it did do damage to all three cars. I went back and watched the replay, and it definitely looks like Corey just got in too deep. I'm sure he'll address that on his podcast this week, but not a good race day for the 7 team. But the qualifying effort was awesome. Qualifying top five. I know that's not going to be enough for him. I know he'll probably be upset at the way it finished, but I thought it was a very, very good sign that he qualified top five, put that thing starting fifth, but hated it for Bubba and Truex. But like I said, they did go on to finish the race. And then you've got a couple cutting course penalties. We saw this all weekend long in the trucks, Xfinity and Cup. I didn't think there was as many in Cup. The Xfinity race, my gosh, it felt like there was so many. And I want to talk about the Xfinity race too, at least the end of it. But I mean, you couldn't go a lap without someone getting a penalty. But the first two victims, John Hunter Nemechek and Chase Briscoe, cut the course before the end of stage one. And I think I noticed, I saw Dale Jr. talk about this, like it was on Twitter. But, we've got to get better with these track limit things. It's so confusing for the fans at home and for the drivers as well, I feel like. I one that jumps out to me, and I'll get to that. But the Chase Elliott one, I just did not understand at all, but I'll get to that, like I said. Christopher Bell goes on to win the first stage after those penalties by the 42 and the 14. C. Bell continues to be consistent week in, week out. He is doing a great job. I predicted a multi-win season for that team. He's already got one. It wouldn't shock me any week of the season to see him go to victory lane, but he's really got better at road courses. He has won on a road course before, but lately it feels like he's got a lot better as well. So I loved it. As a C. Bell fan, guy who really enjoys him. I think you all heard me talk last year if you are listening since then, but I think he's the nicest guy in the garage, at least from the fan perspective. I've met literally almost every driver on the circuit. He seems to be one of the nicest ones. Each time I've met him multiple times, but he's just a good guy, and he can drive the heck out of a race car, whether it's a sprint car, whether it's a dirt car, whatever, or a NASCAR, or he even drove trucks. He drove a truck at Vegas this year. So just he's very talented, and I think he gets overlooked more than anybody in the sport. He's on one of the best teams in the sport in Joe Gibbs Racing, and he does great things. So I think Seabell needs to start getting more credit than he does get. And then an incident involving Seabell, which I mean you could tell based on the replay was not intentional at all. And these guys race together all the time, race together multiple chili bowls, and have raced side by side. And they battled for a win last year at Las Vegas. Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson. The 20 just overdrives the corner, gets into the 5. I hated to see it for Larson. He was kind of making his way back up the field, but spun him and pretty much put it into a successful day for him as far as being in contention for the win, I should say. But Bell, as soon as it happened, you could hear him over the radio saying not intentional, and he said it again in his post-race comments. The 99 of Daniel Suarez, who has the win in Atlanta in his back pocket, so this wasn't a huge deal for him, but he still does like to run well on these road courses. That's mainly his main thing, and he was running decent when he got a speeding penalty on pit road, and to put him to the back. Something I've had a hard time understanding, and if I remember correctly, these two got into it at Indy Road Course last year. Kobayashi, who races some for 2311. Last year he was in the 67 car. This year he's in the 50. He does some road course races. I don't know if we'll see him back now, because the 2 times that he has raced for Denny and Michael, that I can remember, he might have raced at Watkins Glen or somewhere else, but I think he's only done 2. I think one last year and then this race this year. I could be wrong on that. Correct me if I am wrong. But him and Ricky Stenhouse, for some reason, have beef. I don't know what it is. I don't know how you could have beef with the guy who's never raced against you. But both races now that Kobayashi has been in, he has got wrecked by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Really don't, Fox. I think Fox has got better since last year at shots, but man, some things they do drive me crazy. I didn't see I didn't see what happened before the 47 just flat out ran over the 50. the 50 could have done something to him before. It's kind of hard to tell when you can't see it on TV, but it plainly looked like the 47 just ran him over in the S's. And, when that happened, the way the 50 spun, he actually tagged Ricky Stenhouse as well. So they both end up wrecking, no caution. This race went caution free besides the stage breaks, by the way. I want to throw that out there. That's mainly how road courses have been. They experimented last year with no stage breaks. I mean, honestly, to me, it doesn't matter either way. To be honest with you, it's going to be what it's going to be regardless. The stage breaks, at least you bunch them back up and restart, and that makes them interesting. But I thought this race ran pretty smoothly. I thought, there wasn't ever a need to throw a caution flag. To be honest with you, and it was all the wrecks were either self spins or two cars, but they were able to get going immediately. So I didn't think there was any reason to throw a caution flag. So I thought NASCAR made the right call on that. SVG speeding on pit road, and I thought SVG had a good weekend. Now that we are talking about SVG, let's take a break from the Cup race and just go to Xfinity for a minute. I watched that whole race as well. Very good race. And before I talk about Xfinity, I finally got a correct pick. The winner of the truck race was Corey Heim. I am like 1 for 20 so far this year, but I finally got a winner pick. Corey Heim pulls out the truck race. Okay, now back to Xfinity. I had AJ Allmendinger. Allmendinger and SVG look like the most two dominant cars all day long. And, I thought one of them was definitely going to win it. And then AJ gets a penalty. Goes to the back. So he's pretty much out of contention. So then you've got SVG and Austin Hill and Kyle Larson, who I think restarted 9th or 10th, maybe 7th. But anyway, he was back there on fresh tires. And, Larson had a heck of a restart. Austin Hill definitely pushed SVG way too deep into the corner and opened the door for Austin Hill to get by him. And Austin Hill led most of the last lap until SVG got back to him. SVG does the same thing to Austin Hill that I think Austin Hill did to him. Uses him up, gives him the bumper. Hit him too hard, though, to get back under him and win. SVG and Austin Hill kind of move up out of their groove. Larson, by that time, is in third and is able to, on fresh tires, get right by them and go on to win the race. It was an awesome finish. I posted that finish on my Facebook page. So go ahead. Y'all go over there and look at that if you didn't get to see it. But it was an awesome last lap finish. But I was close to having two picks correctly. I thought it was going to be Allmendinger or SVG, but I was glad to see Larson get that win. But I just want to touch on that. Like I said, the Xfinity race, I think, was the best race of the weekend, and I think that's the first time this year we've been able to say that. Usually, like last year, that was every weekend thing, that Xfinity was the best. I think this week was the first week we could say that. But SVG, as far as SVG's Cup day, it was all right. He ran top 15 all day long. I think he was like in 11th when he got the speeding penalty, which was huge for him in a bad way. And then out of nowhere, basically just to get points, Denny and his team didn't feel like he had the car to win. Denny's not known for being super good on road courses, but hey, he willed that thing to a 14th place finish and a stage win. So as a Denny Hamlin fan, I'm content with that. But he won the second stage and got some very valuable points for me in my fantasy league that I'm in. Finally, a successful week there. I think I ended with 33 points this week. Still good enough for like 18th out of 20 people. I've been absolutely miserable, but I couldn't believe Denny was still available at 18, so I had to take him even on a road course. And, it paid off. So congrats to Denny on the stage win. That gives him another playoff point, puts him at, I think that's 6 on the year because he won at Bristol. I think that was his only stage win so far this year. But as always at Richmond, I mean, I look for Denny to be very, very solid this week. And then Michael McDowell, after the end of the stage two, they zoom in on his car. He's just barely creeping along. Power steering issue. Looked like he had no power steering. Absolutely gut punch for that team. They weren't running the best before that, but then after that, it was just impossible. I mean, he had to limp it around at a road course with no power steering. You are just asking for failure. There's nothing. You could be the strongest driver in the world, which I feel like McDowell is pretty dang strong, but you could be the strongest guy in the world and not be able to wheel a NASCAR around with no power steering on a road course, especially one as big as COTA and with as many turns. So hated to see that for McDowell. That team front row has had its I don't know it's had its light shine on it, and then at some point during the race it just fades away. They run solid for parts of races, and then at the end you look up and they're like they finished 30th or something. Like, it's crazy. So not a very good start to the year for those guys. And then we come to the Chase Elliott penalty, which was, I thought, I mean, we're all being honest here. I'm an honest guy. I'm a Denny Hamlin fan, so Diddy and Chase's rivalry. But I will admit, I did not understand this penalty on Chase. I felt like that. Um, you know, I felt like he shouldn't have been penalized. To be honest with you, he wasn't trying to cut the course on purpose. He just got loose going into the S's and ends up in the penalty area. And he was running fifth at the time. I definitely think had a top five run going, maybe a top three. And hated to see that for the nine of Chase Elliott. So I think, you look at the playoff grid now, they're firmly in. I still think he wins multiple races this year. I really do. I think they're better. I mean, they're not overwhelming anybody, but I think they're better than they were last year, and that's what I expected to see from the 9 team. Blaney, who had an up and down day, he self spun trying to come through the field. I think he was running about mid pack at the time, just self spun. Blaney's been decent at road courses. At some point, I think he was going to chase. He was trying to chase down Denny for that second stage win. So he obviously didn't think that he had the car to win the race. But um, you know, he did what he could. So Blaney, I don't really see him as a guy at Richmond that could do that well. But Martinsville, I mean, I think he's the favorite going into Martinsville, to be honest with you. With as good as he ran there last year. After the Blaney spin, a thing that led to a post race confrontation, Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch. Um, I don't really know who to place the blame on here. To be honest with you, I don't even know if it's either one of them's fault. Looking at it, I think once Kyle Busch looked at the replay, I think he would understand more. But it looked like going into turn one, Kyle Busch arced his turn wide and came back across Seabell's nose. And I don't think Seabell realized that's what was happening. I think it was just a bad situation. Seabell raced for Kyle Busch and KBM for years in the Truck Series. He was teammates with him for years. I don't think there's nothing there, to be honest with you. I don't think there's anything there, rivalry wise. I think it was just an honest mistake, maybe by both drivers, to be honest with you. But I didn't really like the post race confrontation. I didn't think Seabell deserved it, to be honest with you. But I guess that's what happens when you have your team feed you information. I really wish people would look at the replay before things. I find myself doing that even in iRacing, and I know NASCAR racing, iRacing, totally different things. But I'll see something and I'll be like, that guy just completely wrecked me, and then I'll get on there and I'll look at the replay and I'm like, well, I could have been at fault for that too. I wish these drivers would look at replays before they, and a lot of them do. A lot of them look at replays before they do anything about it. But I just thought the whole post race confrontation between Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell was kind of unwarranted. I don't think that was intentional at all by either driver. So, it really came down to, I mean, let's be honest, William Byron dominated. But I thought Chastain was giving him a run for his money there late. Ross already has a win here at COTA, and they had a good, solid battle. It was a clean battle. Byron ends up pulling away and winning at COTA for his second win of the season, basically in dominating fashion. I mean, I felt like it was, it kind of like Reddick last year, to be honest with you. It just felt like it was Byron's day, and he went out and delivered. He closed it out. Um, and the 24, and I mean, the 24 is really clicking on all cylinders right now, to be honest with you. Along with the 5, along with the 11. I feel like all those teams are really rolling out. And another thing, the 54, I want to say Ty Gibbs is doing very great things. He's second in points right now. If you listen to my preseason episode, you would realize that I I agree. I mean, I expected it. I still expect Ty to win at least one, maybe 2 races this year. So, and real quick before I go on to preview Richmond, and if you all can tell, man, I'm struggling. I don't I don't feel. I'm sure I don't sound good on the mic, and I'm totally sorry for that. But um, Justin Haley had a very solid run in the 51 car, and he's done great things since he's been racing for Rick Ware. I feel like he's very underrated talent. He has brought the 51 team up to places, quite frankly, I didn't think they could go. He is a very good driver, and their alliance with RFK Racing has helped that. I understand that, but he's done a very good job. He ran top 10 some on Sunday. I think he finished 12th before the penalty that I'm about to say, but he did get disqualified, so end up finishing last for a penalty. The car didn't make weight in post race; it was too light. So definitely stinks for that 51 team. I'm like I said, Justin Haley's a guy that has done really good for Rick Ware Racing. Um, I've been going through um, every race, and I'll give you notable finishers. Alex Bowman. I want to take a second to talk about Bowman. He's done a great job this year. Finishes 4th at COTA. I think he's kind of flew under the radar. Currently firmly locked into the playoffs. I expect him to win a race this year. Chris Buescher started in the back, comes back to finish 8th. He's turned out to be a very good road course racer. Joey Logano finally gets a good finish. Brings it home 11th. Chase Elliott after his penalty 16th. Kyle Larson after his spin on Seabell 17th. Zane Smith 19th. That's decent for that team. SVG 20th. Then I'll go through notable bad finishers. Daniel Suarez's penalty was definitely catastrophic. 31st for him. That's at a road course. Daniel definitely wants to finish better than that. Brad K 33rd. Gregson had an issue. He finished 34th. Josh Berry 35th. Michael McDowell with his steering 38th, and then of course Justin Haley with his penalty 39th. So there's your notable bad and good finishers. William Byron, like I said, can't say enough about him. He's doing a very good job for the 24. Point standings right now, Martin Truex Jr. is actually the leader in points. Ty Gibbs second, Ryan Blaney third, and Denny Hamlin fourth, Kyle Larson fifth. And all 5 of those guys are separated by a combined 15 points. So it's got the potential to be a very close, and I know we're only like 5 or 6 races in, but it's got the potential to be very close. Heck, the top 10 in points are only separated by 49. So very, very going to be very interesting as the season goes on. Now we move on to Richmond. The race is on Easter Sunday. Just like Bristol Dirt was last year, the race is at night, a Sunday night race at Richmond, maybe for the first time ever. It's definitely the first time that I can remember, to be honest with you. It's I think it's just Xfinity and Cup. The trucks are off this week, so we look at the Xfinity race, and I, I don't know what to expect. I mean, the Toyotas and Xfinity are usually very good here. Chandler Smith won here last year, the Chevy, but the Toyotas were decent. I like Chandler Smith to repeat. He's in a Joe Gibbs racing car. He loves Richmond. He says that's his favorite track even before he won last year. So I'll take Chandler Smith to win the Xfinity race. Um, Cup race, man, that's hard to be honest with you. It really is. You look at all the Toyotas. Look at all the Toyotas, and you. I mean, Joe Gibbs Racing is always good. Um, at Richmond, in particular. Um, so I, you look at who are the favorites in. Literally, the first four are all Toyotas. So uh, I feel like I gotta. I don't know, man. Kyle Larson dominated this race last year, and I get Chris Buescher won the second one, and Larson was off in the second one. But I'm kind of lost at who to pick here, to be honest with you. I think you have to go Toyota. And a guy that hasn't been to victory lane in a while, but is usually good here if they can get their strategy calls figured out, um, is Martin Truex Jr. Last year was solid, but they had some mess up in strategy, not enough tire. Like they put a set of tires on too soon or something. I don't exactly remember, but I remember Martin and his crew chief James Small getting into it this race. Um, but uh, Martin Truex Jr. is my pick for Cup Series. I will be shocked if anybody other than a Toyota wins this race. You could make the case for Chevy being Larson, Byron, Bowman, and Elliott. But other than that, I mean, Alex Bowman is kind of, it's definitely a long shot, but I think he needs some more respect, to be honest with you. He's ran good all year. He's won at Richmond before, so that's a guy I would potentially look at as a dark horse. But Chandler Smith and Martin Truex Jr., I think Toyota sweep the weekend in Richmond. And you all let me know what you think. Like I said, Sunday night at 7 o'clock. So we'll have time for the egg hunts and time with family before the race starts. Um, so I hope everybody enjoys their Easter Sunday, their Easter weekend, and hopefully I'm feeling better than I do right now. I'm still under the weather, as you can tell by my voice. I'm sure this has been hard to listen to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. But if you have listened to it and you still are completely, I can't say thank you enough. And then after Richmond, we load up and go to Martinsville. It'll be my first time ever in Martinsville. I'm super pumped for that. It'll be awesome to get back to a NASCAR race after going to so many last year. It's that time. NASCAR season's getting into full swing. I think that it's off to a great start. So thank you all, as always, for listening. This has been JD Talks NASCAR. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, also on YouTube. Thank you all so much. And this has been JD Talks NASCAR. Let's go enjoy Richmond and then head to Martinsville. Thank you all so much.